The Washington Nationals had a very interesting 2023 season. It concluded with them having a record of 71 and 91, but you could argue there was some progress considering the fact it was a full season without Juan Soto. It was a team that had a lot of young players and a lot of the young players that did pretty well, right? So I think overall, I think you look at the 2023 season for the Nets, not necessarily as a massive success, but I think you look at it and say it's a pretty solid year. Nothing too crazy, but I think it was solid for them considering the state of their organization. Heading into 2024, what are their expectations? We will dive into that and more here on this Washington Nationals team profile. So let's not waste any more time. My name is Derek. I'm here with Pat. You're watching Bleacher Brawls, and this is the Washington Nationals team profile. So first things first with the Nats, let's get right into their key players. So I'll hand it right over to Pat first. Who are three key players for this team, and out of those three, who do you think will have a very nice, very solid impact for this Nationals team in 2023? In 2024, actually. Jeez.
Yeah, I think you said you could argue progress has been made. I think progress has been made. I think they've realized that C.J. Abrams is a real competitive baseball player, which I think was a concern for a minute. 3.4 B-WAR last year. Lane Thomas, is a guy I've been high on forever. He was sort of blocked in St. Louis, and him being able to play every day in Washington, I think, has really sort of helped him blossom, and he's kind of a beloved guy there now. And then I'm going to go Keibert Ruiz behind the dish. Catchers in the modern day are such a weird position where, for some reason, Martin Maldonado is sought after. And I'd take Keibert, every day of the week and twice on Sunday before a guy like that. So I think that they do have a very solid young core who's only getting better. And, they finished 10 games under 500 last year. We'll talk about expectations later, but those guys continue to keep playing the way that they're playing. This is a team that largely stayed together. I could easily see a 500 ball club this year.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it's definitely a team that could be solid next year. I don't think we're going to be saying like postseason team or anything, but I think solid is, what you're looking for. A team that can compete will, have a nice little year, but, isn't going to be in the playoffs unless like 3/4 of the league is terrible. You look at the stats, obviously Keibert Ruiz, as I said, I think he's very solid. I like Mackenzie Gore and Josiah Gray, but I want to talk about C.J. Abrams. I know you brought him up a little bit, but I think last year was a nice little progression for him because in 2022, 90 games, he had a 72 weighted runs created plus, and you're looking at it and going, oh, that's a little rough, right? Last year, 90 weighted runs created plus over 151 games. It was most definitely an improvement. 614 player appearances, 151 games. He stole 47 bases, and he had a 300 on base. So we talked about Astori Ruiz a little bit in the A's video, and I was like, this guy could be a tool because he stole 67 bases and doesn't get on base a lot. Abrams, he stole 47, so 20 less, but Abrams didn't get on base a ton last year, and he stole 47 bases. Like, think about if he can get on base a lot more and really be a legit leadoff hitter, and get on base and really be a tone setter for this national team. Like, and he can run, so you could be looking at a guy that could be a 60 stolen base guy. Especially if he's getting on base and getting the opportunities to run. And I think for Abrams, that's massive. And then also to the defensive side, you want to talk about the defensive side for C.J. Abrams. Last year, 4 defensive runs saved at shortstop compared to -5 in 2022. Now, it was -8 outs above average, so a little bit rough in terms of the outs above average. So defensive metrics a little bit split on him. But based on the jump on defensive run save, I'd say it's probably still an improvement for him defensively. There's still stuff he's got to work on, and outs above average being a lot showing range and how the fielder does balls in, left, right, and whatnot. So there's definitely some range stuff to work there with him, but I think the defensive run save going up shows that there was an improvement. It's just how much of an improvement was it, and can he continue improving at shortstop? Because he is a big part of this Nationals team, considering he was one of the pieces that came from San Diego in the Juan Soto trade. And I think that's what makes him so important for this Nationals franchise, along with Mackenzie Gore and James Wood, who's not in the big leagues yet, and all the other pieces they got. Because that is the biggest trade in their franchise history. I think it has to be. I don't know what else could top Juan Soto getting traded. So I think that's the biggest move, and I think Abrams plays a big part in that in their future as well because he is young. But less about a guy who was in a move that they did make. Let's not talk about them in the past. Let's talk about the moves they made this past offseason. Well, it's still technically in the past, but a lot more recent this past offseason. You look at the moves, I mean, they signed Joey Gallo to a one-year deal. Nick Senzel, Dylan Floro. Not a ton going on there. Is there anything that really stands out to you in terms of that?
Yeah, I want to highlight Joey Gallo. Interesting right now because kind of a credit outfield when you include Gallo. I think they're going to have him play some first base and have him DH a lot. I mean, you got to think even Stone Garrett, was playing well last year until he just exploded his leg in Yankee Stadium. Gallo kind of wasted his prime years in this weird way. He's only 30, and his best years at a quick glance were when he was 23, 24, 25. Really just 23, 24. He's got it in him. He's obviously a strong guy. He's always going to be a 3 outcome guy. But is a guy like that going to play better on a Washington team that needs some veterans, that could use a little oomph, which he can give, and a little position flexibility, which, believe it or not, he can do as well, versus teams that are trying to compete like in years past, New York, Los Angeles, even Minneapolis, or excuse me, Minnesota last year. I think so. I think he's got a lot to prove, and at this point, not a lot to lose. I mean, he's kind of falling down the ladder of teams he can play for. He does not want to play for Oakland, so I think it's going to be a real kind of make or break year for him. We'll kind of see what he's got left, if anything. I think that he does, though. Like I said, he's always going to be a 3 outcome guy, but he could be stronger. He could be more flexible. I think that these are kind of characteristics that he's going to try and remind people that he has this year.
I think Gallo's interesting also too because there was one point in time where Gallo was very solid defensively in Texas. I mean, he had 13 defensive runs saved in 2020 and 12 in 2021 in right field. So he was legitimate defensively. There was even in 2019, the Rangers put him in center field for over 300 innings. Joey Gallo was a very good defensive outfielder. But it's ever since he's gone to the Yankees, honestly, it really kind of has just kind of fallen off a little bit. So it's he's a little bit weird in that sense. But there's talent there. You don't hit 40 home runs and just disappear off the face of the earth and lose all your talent. There's still talent there. It's just, is it going to come to fruition? I want to talk about Dylan Floro here. I think this is one of the more underrated signings of the offseason. 1-year deal, just $2.5 million. I mean, sorry, not even $2.5 million. $2.25 million, actually. And last year, the 4.76 ERA definitely looks rough. However, it was a 2.96 FIP. So overall, I think when you look at that, it's okay, maybe his ERA doesn't show the full picture. And then you look at 2022, 3.02 ERA with Miami, 3.13 FIP. 2021 with Miami, 2.81 ERA and 2.81 FIP as well. And then back in 2020 with the Dodgers, 2.59 ERA, 2.66 FIP, and he's made 25 appearances in 2020, which was almost half of the games, and then 68 appearances in 21, 56 appearances in 2022, 62 appearances last year between the Marlins and the Twins. I think Dylan Floro, at the very least, is a reliever you can move at the deadline, especially if he bounces back and is a 2021-22 version of himself, which I think is very much possible, considering his FIP was under 3, even with the 4.76 ERA. I think that shows there's probably a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of, of him not performing to what would be expected based on how he pitched, especially when it's that big of a gap between the ERA and the FIP. So, and with his track record, too, because he has been a solid reliever. So I think this Dylan Floro, I think he does bounce back, and I think he can be a guy that can be a decent trade chip for in a reliever market around the deadline. And you never know how a reliever market is going to play out, especially if it ends up being a weak reliever market. Dylan Floro could be a very nice piece that the Nationals can move and get something back for. So I think that's going to be very interesting. I think that's like I said, I think it's one of the more under the radar, kind of underrated signings this offseason. But moving on from signings and offseason moves, let's talk about expectations. Obviously, a lot of young players, and not the greatest year. We already talked a little bit about what we could see out of them next year, what we think we might be. But I'll go back to you, Pat. What are the expectations for 2024 for the Nationals?
I think they want to be a 500 baseball team. I think that that's definitely possible. The future looked really bleak when you in successive years lose Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Juan Soto, and obviously they won the World Series after that. Harper left, but still, it just feels. Now I think that the rebuild is not going to take as long as they think. They've got some solid guys in the minors. I think that they're a team that is willing to spend the money, as they have seen. They won the World Series 5 years ago. It was not that long ago. They will spend the money. They will go find those free agents. They even did that when they weren't a very good team. 2013-ish, roughly. I had to double check that year, but you get the idea. They're not afraid to be competitive. I think that this year they're back on the upswing. They're going to get better. Guys in the minors are going to progress. And I think that what looked very desolate for Nationals fans for a while is going to turn around sooner than most people think.
Definitely. I think the idea is progress. Progress in terms of record, progress in terms of young players in the big league team, Abrams, Ruiz, Gray, Gore, etc. But then also, too, like their prospects. You have Dylan Cruz heading the system. You have James Wood. You have, Brady House. You have Cade Cavalli. You have Yohandy Morales, Robert Hassel, Christian Vaquero, Elijah Green, who was the 5th overall pick in 2022. It's a very deep system. Are there a lot of position players, a lot of outfielders? Yes, but it's a very good system. And that's the high note I want to leave it on for this national teams, because I am excited to see what they'll do. So with that, my name is Derek. I'm here with Pat. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls. Check out all our team profiles, and we will see you next time.